I'm Josh Lactus, and this is the Husky Landscape. Alongside me is Richard Prosser and Jordan Rosehill. How you doing, boys?
Pretty good.
I'm doing great.
Yep, and remember, this show will go over the UConn Huskies, but not really just the Huskies, more about the landscape around the Huskies, both within the Big East and the AP Top 25. So let's get right into it. The AP Top 25 new poll came out on Monday, and there's some shakeups in the rankings. Obviously, still at number one, you have Auburn, the one team that UConn has beat. That is that high in the rankings. Of course, Auburn no longer has one loss. Arkansas just beat them a few days back. Then, of course, Gonzaga, Purdue, Arizona, Kentucky, Houston, Duke, Kansas, Texas Tech, Baylor. Then Providence, the first Big East team, at number 11. Then you have UCLA, Illinois, Wisconsin, Villanova at 15, who kind of moved down. Ohio State, Michigan State, then Marquette, who obviously just lost to UConn, will probably move down in the rankings next week. Tennessee, Texas, USC, two new additions to the top 25 in St. Mary's and Murray State. And then, of course, you get to the UConn Huskies and the Xavier Musketeers. So, boys, of all of that, what stands out to you guys most about the movement within these week's rankings? And Jordan, will stick with you first.
For me, it's going to be Arizona. I'm not going to say last week that I said they would sweep their games, but they did, and I did say that. So they're going to move up to number 2 in the rankings next week, and I think that they're almost a sure lock to get a number 1 seed come March.
Interesting. Richard?
For me, I think I'm going to stick with Providence here. I mean, they're great. They're on a roll. 11. They don't look like an 11 team to me, and I don't know how they're going to be able to keep it up. I don't see it. I might just be a hater, but I don't see Providence being that high in the rankings.
Yeah, I think I mean, you mentioned Arizona first. We'll go with that, but they're obviously a great team. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But Providence is a team that has really, surpassed all expectations this year. And, whether their team and players look like they're a top 11 team, their record definitely shows it. So, we'll see how that fares throughout the season. But, of course, talking about Providence, we're now going to jump into the Big East standings. So, first at the top is Providence with a 10-1 conference record, followed by Villanova, and then UConn, who jumps back into that 3 spot after beating Marquette. Then, of course, you have that Marquette Golden Eagle team, and then Creighton, Xavier, Seton Hall, Jordan's favorite team, St. John's, Butler, DePaul, and, of course, the fully 0-11 Georgetown Hoyas, Big East champions of last year, but 0-11. So what do you guys think is the biggest takeaway from the movement within the Big East rankings over this past week?
For me, it's Creighton. I can't place this team. I can't predict what this team is going to do whatsoever. They have wins against Villanova and Marquette. They have losses to Butler, Arizona State, almost a second loss to Butler. I think they have the ability to do pretty well come Big East tournament time, but if they stay on this pace, I don't see them doing any better than like a first 4 team in come March.
Yeah, Richard?
Interesting. For me, I mean, like, Marquette, like, their team, especially after watching them live against UConn, they just really are a weird team. Like, the way that they're doing it, they're really well coached. That's one, like, major takeaway I have. They're really, really, really well coached, and that's going to really carry them throughout the way. But they just don't have a lot of talent. Like, they don't have a lot of scoring. Like, they play well. Like, they play well, fundamentally well. But, I mean, the Big East, there's a lot of talented teams. Like, even, like, Providence. I'm a hater on Providence, but I still see their talent. Villanova, even the teams like Xavier, Creighton, they have, like, scorers. Like, they have guys that can go get buckets. And Marquette, they have some scoring, but I don't think they have enough. And they're really a team where I think I could see them falling off late in the season.
I mean, remember, Marquette, extremely young, playing 6 freshman legitimate minutes. And Justin Lewis, of course, as we talked about last week, he is a talented player.
He is a talented player.
And he definitely looks like an NBA player as well. And then, of course, we talk about Creighton. Currently, they actually are put in as last 4 in. So they have a chance. And currently, if the season were to end today, they're predicted to have been making the tournament, but just on the cusp. So it's going to be important to see how they go along the rest of their season. And, of course, we're now going to go into some Big East storylines. And, obviously, number 25, Xavier, now it has started to fall in the last week. They have 2 losses and have lost 2 losses straight and have lost 4 of their last 6 games. Obviously, Saturday, February 5th, they lost to DePaul by a score of 65-69, and then came Wednesday where they lost to Seton Hall 71-73. They obviously are going to have a tough stretch coming up. They have 5 games, 2 against UConn, then Providence, Seton Hall, and then a very scrappy St. John's team. And so, currently 25th in the rankings, currently the 6th team in the conference in terms of the standings. And as we know, the first 5 teams in the conference come Big East tournament time will get that bye for day 1. So, Richard, we'll start with you. Do you think Xavier has it in them to fight back up into that top 5 to get a bye come Big East tournament time?
I do. I mean, even the way you just listed their schedule, they have what UConn coming up. I think they could beat you. I think they could beat us. I mean, we're no world beaters. We're up and down. We win a game. We're playing great, and then we lose the next week, and then we're like, oh, what happened? Like we got destroyed by Villanova. We destroy Marquette. You never know. I mean, especially because we're on the road. I think they could take that at their place. And then we're looking at like St. John's. I mean, Jordan. Like no words there. And then Providence, a team where hey, you got to win one game. You got to steal one eventually, right? So I think they do have a chance. I don't know if it's great, but I think they definitely do have a chance to stay in the top 5 or get to the top 5 and really make a run later.
All right, Jordan.
I don't think so. So there's 3 teams vying for that last 5th spot. It's Creighton, Seton Hall, and Xavier. Something's wrong with the Xavier team right now. They look unmotivated to me. They look lost, really talented. So I think that no team should count them out in the Big East tournament, but I think they're going to have to play on that first day.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Xavier's team, they clearly have the talent. Paul Scruggs looks like a first team Big East player. He if the team was better, he'd probably be in the running for Player of the Year in the Big East, but they're not. Zach Fremantle's taken a big step back. That's a big loss for the center, but of course Jack Nunge, their transfer from Iowa from the offseason, has kind of started to lead this team as well. I think they're an interesting team, as you say. I just think when it comes to their schedule of those 3 teams that you mentioned, I think Xavier is just going to be the team that gets unlucky based on the schedule. UConn twice, Providence, Seton Hall again. It's not kind of building in their favor. And of course, when you look at them and you look at a team like Seton Hall, it's a very different story. Now, Seton Hall has won 3 straight games, Georgetown, Creighton, and then they finally kind of worked their way up to number 25 Xavier, which they just beat. And their next 2 games, of course, are similar to Xavier, tough matchups. They first play Villanova and then UConn. So how do you guys think Seton Hall is going to fare over these 2 games?
I mean, Villanova and UConn, that's a rough stretch of the Big East right there. I mean, coming into the year, these are like the 2 top teams in the Big East, right? So it's going to be tough for them. I mean, I can't see them beating Villanova. They're just too talented. They really are. And they did beat us, but they beat us at their place. And even though I say, like, we're wishy-washy, watching us play at home, I think that our team, like UConn, we played really, really well with the crowd. You could even tell, like, Hurley trying to get the crowd motivated, trying to get everyone, like, pumped up, fired up. And you could also see how, like, different players like Tyrese and RJ, they're really, like, playing to, and Jordan Hawkins, too, playing to the crowd. So I think it's going to be really tough to beat us at home. And, I mean, that can be 2 losses right there for Seton Hall, and that's going to be rough for them.
Jordan?
So I actually really like the Seton Hall team. I think that's the team that grabs that final 5th spot in the conference. However, I don't see them winning either of these games. Villanova's too tough to overcome. I don't see them beating UConn at home. And I still like the Pirates, but I don't think they win either game.
Yeah. I mean, look, whether they win these 2 games or not, their schedule after that looks really light in terms of Big East play. So I actually do agree with you, Jordan, that they're going to make that 5th spot. But I'll just say this now. Villanova, obviously, without Justin Moore yet, we don't know whether that's going to stay for the Seton Hall game. We'll see about that. And Colin Gillespie is also coming off a bad ankle injury. Now, they still rolled in their last game. It just wasn't as good of a team as Seton Hall. I think, if Gillespie is still hurting from that ankle, if Moore is still out, you could argue that Seton Hall has a shot. But even so, I think you guys are right. All right, going into our 3rd game for the Big East, Villanova versus Providence, the top 2 teams in the conference, and they go head-to-head next week. On Tuesday the 15th, they'll head to Providence. Villanova will head to Providence and clash of the current Big East Titans. It's their first meeting of the season. Simply put, Richard, who do you think's winning this game?
I mean, without Justin Moore and if Colin Gillespie can't play, I mean, it's going to be tough for Villanova to win this game. I think that they definitely have a chance. Like, they are very talented. But then again, like, Nate Watson, I mean, he is a dominant big man. He is one of the best players in the Big East. He really is. Arguably the best big man in the Big East.
Yeah.
Even though UConn fans might have something to say
I
about
would
that.
strongly disagree with that statement. But I do get your point about Providence possibly winning this game. Jordan, what's your opinion?
I think Providence wins this game. I wish I could give you like a full analytical standpoint from that, but I can't. Villanova's a better team statistically, analytically, everything on paper. But this is Providence's magical season, and I think it keeps running here.
Yeah, I mean, I see Villanova winning this game. Villanova's a better team. Look, by that point in time, there's a good chance that Gillespie and Moore or at least one of them will be back in stride, specifically Gillespie. And I don't see Providence beating this team because I don't think they have the players. You talk about Nate Watson. He's been good this year, but if you're thinking about what preseason expectations for him were, I think he's been a little hyped up just because of how good the team's been. He's averaged 13.5 points a game, which is solid. 6 rebounds a game, solid. But it's not Adama Sanogo. It's not Colin Gillespie. He's not going to be a first-team Big East player come the end of the year unless something changes, right? Champagny, Javon Freeman, Liberty. You have guys, Jared Rhoden. You have guys that have really excelled. And while Nate Watson has led the best team in the conference so far this year, Nova's still the best team in terms of talent, I think it's just a team effort. Bynum, Durham, AJ Reeves, Manaya's defense, like this team comes from its depth. And of course, when you're taking that against Nova, Nova has the star players. And of course, with the star players of Colin Gillespie, with the emergence of Eric Dixon, if Justin Moore is back, with Slater looking solid, with Samuels being reliable, I don't see how Providence can beat this team, even at home. I think we're going to move on to now out of Big East Conference play into the top 25 and storylines around the nation. We mentioned this before where Jordan said number 4 Arizona went 2-0 and takes over the Pac-12 over UCLA, including in one of those games, and of course they beat USC in the other. Now you have a big week going 4-0 since our last episode, and they have wins, as I said, over that 3 UCLA and 19 USC team. And now they added a win against Arizona State and Washington State, and now they sit atop the conference in the Pac-12. So is Arizona a team that gets a 1 seed come NCAA tournament time? We know your opinion, Jordan. You think yes. So I'm going to kind of switch up the question for you. Do you think that there is a chance they fall out of that 1 spot?
Obviously, there's a chance. So the 2 hardest games remaining, they have 1 game against Oregon, a very hard team to predict, very up and down this season, and their final game of the season is a rematch against USC. Should they lose either of those games, I think they probably get bumped off the 1 seed with Kentucky coming up still, and I think Purdue can jump back in there. But I don't see that as likely. I think they sweep the rest of the schedule.
What do you think about their chances of being on a 1 line come tournament time?
I don't think they are. I think it's going to be up there, I think Kentucky has it. I think they're playing really well. They have the pedigree, too. Kentucky's back. I think that's something that's lost this year. Kentucky's back. They are a team that last couple of years, they, just have struggled. And it really didn't make a lot of sense. And then they fell out the minds of everyone. But I think that they're going to be able to take the 1 seed. And they're going to, I think Arizona, they're a good team. But I don't think they're great. I think that they beat a lot of bad teams.
Interesting.
Which,
yeah.
That's what good teams do, but they do have a soft schedule.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is obviously not one of the elite conferences this year. They have that kind of top 3 teams. And I think you make a good point about Kentucky. Oscar Tshiebwe has become one of the nation's best centers, kind of leading the charge right now in the Wooden Award, and he's a big reason for their emergence. I think they do end up as a 1 seed because I don't think the Pac-12 is going to hand them any losses, especially after playing their UCLA games and playing one of their USC games. So we'll see when it comes tournament time, but I think it'll be real interesting to see how that all goes out. And now we're going to get to storyline 2 outside the Big East. And of course, this is an interesting one, the Mountain West Conference. It's a conference that doesn't get talked about much, but this year it definitely deserves the recognition. There are 5 teams within the top 60 of the net rankings. That's Wyoming, Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Fresno State. All 5 of these teams in the top 60 teams in the country, according to the net. And of course, Colorado State plays Boise State on Sunday. It's a big game, but let's kind of take it back a step, take it and look at it from a UConn perspective, because these are teams that UConn very easily could see in the first or second round of the tournament and come March time. So, how do you think UConn should look at these teams if they were to match up against them in the tournament? Jordan?
Well, first off, I want to say I appreciate the small conference love. This conference is very interesting, especially for UConn. The conference is split in terms of play styles. So you have San Diego State, Boise State, Fresno State. These teams play very slow, very physical. The kind of game that UConn likes to play. And so if UConn kind of grabs a 5 seed and 5 versus 12, they could definitely see one of those teams, and I think that would be an easy first-round matchup for them. But then you have a team like Colorado State, and that's how upsets in the tournament happen. Colorado State, good shooting team, gets hot, UConn can't catch up. I think that's a worse matchup for them.
Yeah, Colorado State's point guard shoots 50% from 3 on 12 attempts per game. It's ridiculous to see. But I'll tell you this about Colorado State, too. They do not have an interior. They don't have guys who can score on the inside. Their tallest player who they give legitimate minutes to is 6'8", and he's more of a guy who can pop out on the wing. I think Adama and Whaley will feast in that game. But you're not wrong that that's how upsets happen when teams get hot from 3. And come tournament time, you never know. But I still think UConn should be favored there. I'm most worried about Wyoming. But Richard, what do you think about the Mountain West Conference?
I don't think anyone out here on the East Coast is really worried about the Mountain West Conference, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, UConn.
No love, right?
UConn's gonna steamroll these teams, right? Like they're not Providence. They're not Villanova. They're not Seton Hall. They're like St. John's. Like
that's a bit.
Maybe not St. John's.
It's uncalled for.
You're taking shots at Jordan's team now.
I mean, they're not great teams. We play in the Big East. We play these tough teams night in, night out for 2 months straight, and then we're gonna have to play a Mountain West team that some teams scoring in the 40s to get a win. Like, come on, UConn's gonna be able to steamroll the. Like, we could score 70+ points. Like we just have so much scoring, and then even without. We're just gonna score so much. It doesn't even. It's not even close.
Look, Richard's not a fan of the Mountain West Conference. I'll say this. Look, UConn should be favored in all those games. They'll definitely be a lower seed than UConn. You know, all these Mountain West Conference teams I'm referring to. But I will say, it's the NCAA tournament. It's always fun. And I always love to see smaller conferences like the Mountain West, like the West Coast Conference, to put teams in, or put multiple teams into the tournament. Because it's just, it's fun to see it, It's fun to see these smaller conference teams that we don't normally hear about make big runs in March. That's what NCAA tournament's all about. All right, and with that being said, that's the end of Husky Landscape. It's been great talking to you guys this week, talking about the Big East and conferences around the country. But that's all. I'm Josh Schlachtis, and alongside me, Jordan Rosenthal, Richard Prosser for UCTV Sports.